How you guys doing? You guys
No,
doing
I
okay
think
over there?
more
How
stable
are
than
you?
you.
How are you doing, buddy? That's the real question here.
This is the most out of sorts I have felt doing one of these live shows since the Bears Commanders Thursday night game from a few years ago, where it was like a true low point for the franchise. And I'm just sitting there like, this is horrendous. My heart was pounding through my chest when they were kicking that field goal. I can't remember feeling that way during a Bears game in a while, just because I think this one mattered a lot in a few different ways. Coming out of the bye in a season where you have all of this hope, it's like, just please look like a respectable football team. Like, please look like a team where it's worth investing the hope that I'm putting into this. And then the fact that it comes down to a Jake Moody field goal in the rain a year after the way that game ended in Washington. It on so many different levels, I'm just an absolute mess as that game ends. The ball goes through the uprights. There's a lot to talk about. I'm going to do my best to sort through everything and be like a mild professional in this situation, but I am not doing so great. Just from like a being settled standpoint, I am a happy person right now.
Just steer into the skid, man. I think people want the chaos of it all because that's what that game was. I mean, like, I have no investment whatsoever. I just moved here, but because of everything you just outlined, and also at some point, I guess I want Jake Moody to get a win. Like,
Absolutely.
I was standing up, like yelling at my TV. I was like, don't let Jake Moody be the face of such a terrible moment. That's basically what I was saying. It was pretty stressful. And then the flip side of it, Jaden Daniels looked, even with the turnovers, like he looked so cool and so dialed in for a lot of this game, and for such an avoidable gaffe to be the reason why the Bears were in this position in the first place. It's just one of those games where, as a human, you're like, I hate the way somebody's going to feel when this game is over, one way or the other.
Here's why I don't feel bad about the avoidable gaffe being one of the reasons that the Bears won this game. The Bears had like 5 of their own avoidable gaffes, and that's the only reason that they were in that position at the end. So I think if I were to sort out how I'm feeling right now and why I think there's a decent amount of positivity coming out of that, if the Bears were to have lost that game, you would just be sitting there going over all of the self-inflicted mistakes as to why they lost that game, right? You have a 3rd and 1 botched snap in Washington territory, doesn't allow you to go forward on 4th down. You have to kick a field goal there. It gets blocked. You have a touchdown that gets waved off the board on an absolute nonsense illegal formation penalty on Theo Benedict. The refs were awful today, and that's just not a Bears thing. Like, I just thought this game was officiated in a way that I did not love. There was an illegal contact penalty on Mike Sainer still at one point where I'm sitting there being like, what is this? Like, let them play. This is absolutely ridiculous. And so this is not the Bears got screwed on a bunch of calls thing. I just didn't like the way the game was officiated, period. And so you have the OZ drop on what should have been a huge completion coming out of their own end zone. So just so many moments where the Bears got in their own way. That being said, I felt like those were like self-inflicted player-led mistakes that are frustrating, but don't speak to a lack of operation with the offense. That's what was frustrating to me earlier in the season over the first 4 weeks, is that the offense just looks so messy. They couldn't run the ball at all. The fact that down to down, I think there's actually a lot of reason to be optimistic about what the offense looked like tonight coming out of the bye. That's part of why I'm feeling pretty good right now, Derrik, is that I think that there's a lot you can hang your hat on from this game if you're the Bears, not just that Washington made a mistake at the end and that's the reason that you won.
Yeah, I think the run game in particular finally looking like it had some sort of life, which this is like you got to prove it to me again, but you got to start somewhere. And to do it against a Washington front that has honestly been decent against the run, and I think their front 4 has been pretty good. I think that was like a really encouraging sign. I also thought you just saw in a couple of moments like Ben Johnson scheme things up really well, like on the huge DeAndre Swift where he breaks a tackle from Quan Martin. Obviously, him breaking the tackle and then just running for 30 more yards is the important part of the play that gets them in the end zone. But it's a nice little call where they know they're getting man coverage on that down and they push him out just a little bit, which the safety is going to come out of the roof and play man coverage on him. Well, if you quick motion him out right before the snap, you force the issue immediately, and it kind of creates this pseudo pick that gets him wide open. So like, I just getting some of that stuff to start to work, the run game to come together. I think that's how you end up with a game that looks like mostly put together outside of a couple of stupid mistakes.
I straight up did not expect the final field goal to be as manageable as it was, because even as well as they ran the ball, DeAndre Swift popping that sweep for 15 yards at the end was just beautifully executed and beautifully run by him. And they were behind the sticks. It's a situation where you sort of just expect the offense to like take the 2 to 4 yards that's given to them. And it's like, all right, this is going to be longer than we feel comfortable with at the end of a game in a rainstorm. And I thought that was a really impressive exclamation point on this performance, which was very encouraging for the Bears as a whole. But DeAndre Swift has caught hell this first month of the season, and he really put his best foot forward. Pardon the pun.
I think it's a combination of a lot of different things. Obviously, this is the first time they've had this offensive line combination the entire year, right? With Theo Benedict playing left tackle with Darnell right back, or left tackle, Darnell right back at right tackle. I think that group is the best run blocking group that's been on the field the entire season. You saw that today. Derrik, we've talked a lot about this. Washington has struggled on perimeter runs the entire year. It's just not how they're built defensively. And so if you get the ball on the edge against them, you can pop some of these. And so I think the game plan was really solid. And then we probably had the best game we've seen from DeAndre Swift. And so I think those are a lot of the positives with the offense. They continue to be able to scheme up chunk plays through play action. It's another positive with the offense. What still frustrates me is that I think that the plan against pressure leaves a lot to be desired. Caleb was 3 of 9 against the blitz today. There were a couple high leverage moments on the first drive. He gets heated up. He and DJ Moore have a little bit of a miscommunication. And then on the fourth down, where he's just late getting to Rome on that play action where Rome's coming across the left side. So I think that, to me, the passing game overall, more answers against pressure. And I think the other thing that really sticks out to me, Dave, you mentioned this about Jaden Daniels, and I think this is my main takeaway overall. He is so calm, composed within himself all the time. And it leads to this like steadiness and just maddening quality of playing against them, where the ability to just make a guy miss in space, like what he did to Montez Sweat on that RPO, and just that's happening consistently, where he's just never outside of himself. And you just feel that level of calm with the entire offense. Caleb is just not there. It's just a lot more frantic, and you could feel the difference in those two offenses when you watch this game tonight. I think for the most part, Caleb's had a lot of flashes over the first 4 games of the season. I think this is probably the worst performance he's had since week 1, when you just look at what it felt like down to down, Derrik. But I don't think it's disqualifying. I just think this is a slight step back just in terms of how composed and comfortable he felt within this offense. I think it was a little bit more frantic tonight, especially when you're up against the mirror of a second-year quarterback like Jaden Daniels, who always feels like he's kind of playing within himself.
I mean, I agree with that. Like, he didn't end up throwing a pick in this game, but he could have thrown 2. On the one you mentioned,
he tried to.
Yeah, on the fourth and 1 play action where he has Rome coming across on the shallow, he throws that a little bit late. Frankie Louva almost picks it off, and then there was one in the red zone where I think he was trying to throw like a slant route just over the hash, and somebody else almost gets a hand on that and almost picks that one off. So like
it was a fake play. It was a play action to the right, like a fake toss, and then he comes back to the left side and just never peeks where the defender is. He throws it right to Mickey Sanders, so it should have been an interception.
Yeah, that's just I'm going to assume that guy's open. And sometimes in these offenses and in Ben Johnson's offense, you kind of just have to do that. But when it goes that way and you don't he also threw the ball a little bit behind, I felt like it just, in terms of that, it was not his best day, but you still saw some of the flash. I think overall he still played decent. And then overall you saw a couple of the flashes. Like, to me, the throw that he makes to Luther Burden, it's not the location of it or anything, but the snap at which he can just get that off is it's why you chase a player like that. Like, you just don't see guys who can get that type of rotation. So he got away with some stuff today, but again, like you said, not disqualifying, and you still saw some of the stuff that you're hoping by the end of the year you get a little bit more consistently.
It's slowing down for him. It's just still a little fast. I think that's kind of where I fall with it. And again, you compare it to where Jaden Daniels, who it's always felt slow since he's been in the league. On the other side of the ball, I felt like them being able to put up some semblance of a run defense against this Washington team, that's also really encouraging based on what the defense had looked like over the first month or so. On the back end, you still have, it's a little bit messy, right? Like, Nahshon Wright is going to spike my heart rate for the next 12 weeks. Like, that's going to continue to happen. And you saw them pick on him a couple different times. Obviously, there's a blown coverage in the 33-yard fake screen that goes for a touchdown to Luke McCaffrey. Kyler Gordon definitely getting his feet wet after missing the first 4 games of the season. He had kind of an uneven game back. And I think still had a hard time generating pressure when they weren't blitzing in this game. I think that's going to be something to keep an eye on, Dave. But I think overall, a much more competent defensive performance from this Bears team against what is down an incredibly consistent and efficient Washington offense.
Which on the Washington side of it, I'm so, I guess encouraged would be the word. Maybe just interested. Obviously, this has been a stretch where they haven't had Terry McLaurin. Deebo Samuel was a game time decision. And it's just a handful of plays, but I am noticing the Luke McCaffrey and Jalen Lane influence in this offense.
Absolutely.
And I'm super interested to see where it goes. Like for those two guys, it was one catch for McCaffrey last week. It's one catch this week. Jalen Lane, that beautiful ball down the sideline that Jalen threw to him late. I think it was early fourth quarter, maybe mid fourth quarter.
He cooked Tyreek Stevenson on that double move.
It was the most
It was
beautiful stutter go ever. And so if you're getting that from these guys early on where you kind of need somebody to step up because Terry McLaurin's not there, it's a very encouraging sign for where this offense could be later on in the season. But yeah, in general, considering who you're going against, considering the challenges that Jaden presents, I thought it was an overall encouraging enough performance from the Bears.
Anything else from this game you guys want to hit? I've just been like downloading my emotions for the last 13 minutes. Like anything that jumped out to you that we have not talked about at this point, Derrik?
The only thing I would say is like I thought the red zone or the end zone touchdown to Zach Ertz was pretty nice. Like Dennis Allen is prone to calling some cover 2 in the end zone, and I think Washington was a little bit privy to that. Knew if they had trips to the left side, the middle hook dropper would open up to that side, and they could just pull the other backer down, have Ertz run that little wrap route, and like that's honestly, it's funny. Like Jaden Daniels, I think, sometimes in between the 20s doesn't love to throw the middle of the field, but like weirdly in the red zone is like extremely confident doing it.
And some of the best stuff they've done over the last 2 years, like their ability to access that specific area inside the 10-yard line. They've been incredible at it in his first 2 seasons.
Like that area, like right literally under the goalpost is like he's very comfortable throwing that. And they did a really good job, obviously on that play, getting him open, and Daniels put a really, really nice ball there.
Couple things that stand out, and well, I mean, they kind of do wind up mattering the way this game comes down to it. But I enjoy the juxtaposition between this incredibly efficient, exciting offense with a young quarterback, and then Dan Quinn, who is a longtime veteran NFL head coach, who's on his second stint as a head coach. At the challenge over 1 yard was like one of the silliest things that happened in the NFL this week. Obviously, they won the challenge. It didn't matter at all, but just
it did end up mattering because it was 3rd and 1 and they didn't end up getting it. So that yard actually did have an impact on that set of downs.
Just wild that we did that. And then not going for 2 when you go up 7 later in the game. Like people were screaming at Dan Quinn, like, hey, this is a chance to be really aggressive. You're built to be a 2-point conversion type of team. And we've talked about the Commanders so much, their efficiency in go forward situations and the way Jaden Daniels can put pressure on you. That was an opportunity to grab control of this game, and they ultimately don't take it in a game that they lose by a point. And I'm getting ahead of myself here, but if Jaden Daniels continues on this trajectory and he keeps playing this way and the Commanders have staying power, it reminds me a lot of Sean McDermott and Josh Allen, which is fitting because we can get to the Bills game in a minute. But like you have this old school, more conservative head coach with like this just race car of a quarterback. And that could present some frustrations if this marriage lasts for a long time. Obviously, that would be a really good problem to have. But I found myself thinking about that as this game played out.
I think that's fair, and just in terms of like the archetype of the two guys. But if you look at history, like Sean McDermott has actually been fairly competent on 4th down decisions over the last few years. If you look at like when he should go for it and when he doesn't, and Dan Quinn went for it a lot on 4th down last year.
He did.
So I think situationally, those guys have actually been okay despite their background.
I just hope they stick with it. And you're right. They were amazing on 4th down last year. We talked about it all summer long, and how much they would regress was a big topic of conversation. But when I hope you continue to live up to it, I guess, is my only concern. Like, when you have a quarterback who can do what Jaden Daniels can do, I think you should be looking for every advantage you can in those sorts of situations.
The last thing I'll mention just about performance from specific players in this game, and I actually thought Troy did a good job of hitting this during the broadcast. Derrik, we've talked about just how frustrating the Bears linebackers have been against the run this year, and Tremaine Edmonds specifically, really over the last couple years. And I thought those guys did a much better job of playing downhill in this game than they had at any point so far this season. And so beyond some of the penetration you saw from the front, and I did think that stuck out in certain moments in this game, I thought this was the best game we got against the run from the Bears linebackers so far this year. And so if that's an indication of maybe what we may see from them over the rest of the season, that makes me breathe a little bit easier, because there were some tough moments over the first month.
And they just haven't played together a lot this year. Like they've had guys in and out of the lineup, and then obviously you're trying to work into a couple of new younger defensive linemen in front of them. Like how do you play with that? So I think this was a better game for them. But again, like I would like to see a little bit more from them, especially Edmonds in terms of the physicality department. That's we need to prove it more than 1 week type of thing.
I'm 100% with you. I just liked seeing it in a small stretch today against a team where if you do not play that way, it's not going to go very well for you. All right, let's get to the Bills-Falcons game. I'll be honest with you guys. I thought I could do this. I thought that I could watch both of these games simultaneously and then I'd be fine. I watched the first quarter and a half, and then as soon as the Bears game started, I became completely useless. So this is going to be on you guys to walk me through what happened in this game. So the way that it was looking to me is that the Falcons were doing anything they wanted on the ground, pretty much anytime they wanted to get it. Drake London had a massive first half. Obviously, there's that play at the end of the half, and it felt like the Bills passing game was really frustrated throughout this entire game based on what Atlanta was doing to them. So, Derrik, just what do I need to know about this game? Like, what is the most important element as to why the Atlanta Falcons won this football game?
I'm going to go with 3 things. The first one is Bijan Robinson. The second is Drake London. And the third, surprisingly, the Falcons pass rush was really, really good in this game. They had a 44% pressure rate, which I saw Mina posted on Blue Sky, is the highest pressure rate that the Bills have allowed all season. And also the only time that they've allowed over 30% this season. So the Falcons pass rush was almost twice as good against the Bills as any other team has been this year. And you felt that, especially on a lot of these third downs. They were doing a really good job of heating them up, getting one-on-ones with the backs, getting Ellis to be a really good blitzer, and really, they didn't they just frustrated Allen in a way that I think very few other teams have been able to this year. And so you had a couple of nice drives from Buffalo where they ran the ball really well. Their first drive out of the half, they kind of kicked ass, but otherwise, the Falcons pass rush in front actually did a really good job of frustrating them on that side.
I'll be honest, even and it's no disrespect to Bijan Robinson, Drake London. I thought Michael Penix was really good, particularly in the first half of this game. But I come out of it with my main takeaway being Jeff Ulbrich and the Falcons defense. I said going in, how much do we really know about the Falcons? They haven't had that many true tests. They went against Marcus Mariota. They went against Bryce Young before Rico Dowdle. JJ McCarthy. Yeah. So this was a huge test. And my God, did they pass it with flying colors. I mean, so many different things I was impressed with. But mainly, yes, Derrik, the pass rush was incredible. But also the Falcons just blitzed the shit out of Josh Allen. And
it's 50% of their snaps, right?
56% of his dropbacks, which I think Ben Solak said it was the highest that somebody's blitzed Josh Allen in 4 years. 19 dropbacks they blitzed, and they got pressure on 10 of them. They sacked him. 3 of their 4 sacks came on blitzes, including one that derailed a scoring opportunity. They were sending everybody from everywhere. Divine Diablo and D. Alford were maniacs in this game. They were all over the freaking place. And on top of that, Josh Allen, the early going looked good, right? The early drives typically do. And Josh Allen manipulated the zone and hit Dawson Knox for the early touchdown. After that, he either didn't have time to throw because there were guys in his face so much, or the Falcons secondary just beat the Bills up. And I didn't give them I didn't give them enough credit for this because he was hurt and he hasn't always been at his best over the last couple years. But AJ Terrell and Jesse Bates making up a healthy chunk of your secondary when you have a pass rush that's worth a shit. It's a nice starting point. And those guys were on point the rest of this night. Like after the early going, they were just murking people. Like AJ Terrell had Keon Coleman in hell. Just couldn't do anything about it. And so between the pressure and just the Falcons being on the screws on the back end, Josh Allen couldn't get anything going. It was and they sustained it all night long. Like even in garbage time where you're up by 10 and like maybe it doesn't really matter if the Bills score, they still made it difficult on him when it got down in the red zone and wind up picking him off. It was a very, very impressive performance.
Do you know how many Falcons players had at least one pressure in this game?
Like 8, dude.
12. Which I'm
gracious.
positive that's never happened in my lifetime. The Falcons doing that. I'm certain of that. Like it's just a crazy number. And then you mentioned Terrell, like he had one particular, the 3rd and 6, where Keon Coleman's trying to run like a little bit of a curl route and he just bullies him at the top of the route. Like that's what Keon Coleman is supposed to be good at, is pushing you off. And AJ Terrell was just like, nope, I'm good. I'm the all-pro caliber player, and you're not.
The one that jumped out to me, there was the 3rd down, I think in the second half, or it was just before halftime, excuse me, where D'Alford and Diablo come off the right side, and then Ebiketie peels with Ty Johnson on like the little wheel route, and Allen gets sacked. It's like, all right, well, if we're gonna be doing that type of shit, then I think I'm pretty excited to watch what this defense is gonna be.
D'Alford played such a cool game. He had 4 pass rushes, a sack, a pressure, and he picked off Josh. And that's on top of like, you know, your standard 6 tackles or whatever it wound up being. Like him and Divine Diablo were just bum rushing the B gap. Like they must have done it 3 times in this game. Like the game plan was so fun. And it's risky too. Like if you go back and look at some of those plays, of course there are open men, but Josh Allen just had no opportunity, which is saying something when you're talking about a guy as talented as him. Like they got to him and they didn't let up when they got there. The whole unit felt like they were playing at a different speed the entire game.
Watching the dots was really funny because typically when you're sending those like 5 and 6 man pressures, a lot of the time these are man pressures where you're just playing man coverage on the back end. Derrik, we're getting like 3 deep, 2 under zone looks behind all of these blitzes. It would just schematically and structurally, it was incredibly funky. And we talked a lot about this summer. It's like, what would the Jeff Ulbrich defense in Atlanta look like based on his history with the Jets and just his history in that Niners type scheme? And I spent a lot of time, I think both of us did. It's like, all right, what will the front mechanics look like and which positions and which roles are guys going to slot into? Him coming out with one of the more blitz happy, stunt happy, dynamic pass rush plans of any defensive coordinator in the league so far. That's not what I thought would be in the cards, but that has been a fun answer to the question we were asking all summer.
That is not what I thought we were going to get. Because like he's coming from kind of like the Saleh-ish tree, and like he has some interesting blitz stuff, but Robert Saleh is not a like we're going to play hot coverage with 3 deep, 2 under. Like he just doesn't want to do a whole lot of that unless obviously you're playing a lot of man coverage. So I think he's taken to, again, we asked with the pass rush, it's like you have so many different bodies and guys that are like, maybe you don't even want to necessarily just use them as pass rushers like your Jalen Walkers, but then you also have linebackers that you want to be blitzing like a Ellis. Like, how are they going to piece this together? I really think they have done a pretty cool job. And then the secondary still isn't perfect, but the worst players in the secondary are no longer like we can just easily pick on this guy every single time, the way that I think last year there 1 or 2 worst secondary players were like you could just circle them and that was a free completion almost every time.
On the offensive side, go ahead.
If I'm a Bills fan looking for copium, I guess it's worth pointing out Josh Palmer went out really quickly in this game, and he did have a 45-yard completion, and Dalton Kincaid didn't play. So you're down a couple items if you're Buffalo, but I don't subscribe too heavily to that. Like the way they were getting after Josh, I don't know how much difference it makes.
On the other side of the ball, what it looked like to me is that the Falcons were just running the ball at will for a huge chunk of the first half. They were doing it consistently where they were just motioning the tight end out and just getting like really, really light boxes and just hitting those zone runs where play side guard is comboing up to the linebacker, and then Bijan just out the gate like multiple different times on those runs. The design of the run game has always been fantastic. And so it just seemed like Bijan did whatever he wanted in this game. What stood out to you about what they tried to do on the ground, Derrik? And what stood out to you about Buffalo's lack of a plan or their lack of execution in that plan?
I'm like completely over it with the Sean McDermott defense. Like I like fully over it. And this is not a like.
It's not surprising to hear that it's
Yeah.
from afar. It seemed like we were heading that direction tonight.
This is not like a. They don't get anything out of firing him in week 6, and I'm not even calling for them to do that. But like assuming this season ends the way that this first half looks, which is how a lot of their seasons have ended recently. Like I'm kind of fed up with it. Like actually, I don't even remember the order of them because there were so many in the first half. One of the huge Bijan Robinson runs is they're literally just running zone to the right side out of pistol. And again, Cole Bishop just takes a really, really conservative angle and isn't able to get to the sideline, and Robinson's just gone. And so that has been a consistent theme for them. We saw that in the Ravens game, but we've seen that a number of different times. And like, I want to put a couple of numbers to it so it doesn't sound like I'm just losing my mind a little bit. So by explosive run rate this season, the Bills are allowing an explosive run on 14.8% of their runs, which would be the worst number in 2 decades. Now, if we want to take out the week 1 game because it was Derrick Henry, weird stuff happens in week 1, fine. That number drops to 12.8, which is still the 5th worst over that 2-decade span. So this is still really, really bad. And they also have the worst rushing success rate as a defense in the entire Sean McDermott era. Like this, we've probably been a little bit just more frustrated than like how bad is this actually over the past handful of years. Right now, this is a serious like can sink your team type of problem for them.
That was going to be my next question. Is that like when we're at a point now where when you and I were talking about it after the Saints game, it's like, all right, this has got to get better, guys. Like this is something that is in the back of our minds. If you fancy yourself like a real Super Bowl contender, in your mind after tonight, we're in like flashing alarm as to where the point that this has reached.
I think 100%. And like, I know that they were better overall as a defense in the second half, but like, to me, it's just, I just do not and I know that they're missing a couple of guys. Like they drafted Landon Jackson to partly fix this problem, right? I like me a Landon Jackson. He's not going to fix you being the worst run defense that you've been in your Sean McDermott era. Like it's probably just not going to happen. And so I understand that they're missing a couple of guys and maybe they'll be a little bit better, but I just have been so frustrated by the way that they've built it with so many smaller players, particularly at the second and third level. And I think it's rearing its head in the worst way now, especially that the safety room is just, they've spent development, draft picks and stuff, and that hasn't worked out. And then at linebacker, they've just been a little bit banged up this year. And so if your smaller linebackers are a little bit banged up, you're just not getting hands on anyone. And then your safeties are taking bad angles. And that's how Bijan Robinson gets 200 and whatever scrimmage yards.
I don't know the status of any of these guys. It's hard, especially when there's another game on. It's hard to keep track of it all. But there was a stretch in this game, too, where every 3 snaps, a Bills player was going to the sideline. So on top of just being bad, which they have been for most of the year, like you're getting banged up in this game. You were banged up coming into this game. And that's nobody's fault, but I'm so tired of seeing it for the Bills. Like it's every year where you're dealing with all of this attrition and you're hoping that they can tie it together with duct tape and rubber bands in time for December. And to their credit, they've typically been successful at it, but like how often? And also, if this is one of the teams that we're measuring by what you do in the playoffs, will it matter that you tie it together enough to win 11 or 12 games if your goal is to win 3 games in a row in January? It's hard to feel optimistic. Like my God, what a performance by Bijan. Even knowing, like we all know how good he is, but it felt like a different level of performance from him. That's how dominant he was.
You guys want to hear about a bad beat?
Oh, let's do it.
Always.
I needed Bijan to have less than 180 all-purpose yards and a touchdown for me to win my fantasy game. Obviously, he had more than that. Do you know what makes it worse? Mm-hmm. I had Drake London on my bench.
No. No.
That is terrible.
To be fair, to give me a little, in fairness to me, my other three receivers are Emeka, Ibuka, Puka Nacua, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. That's the only reason the Drake London thing happened.
So
I had 4 of the top 5 receivers in fantasy this week. I had to pick 3 of them.
I'm glad you bring this up. I'm sorry about your fantasy matchup, but I'm glad you bring this up for real football purposes. One subplot that I really loved is the fact that we're not talking about the Drake London touchdown that wasn't at the end of the half. And like, you miss that by a toe length. Like, if Drake London wears a 2 sizes smaller shoe, maybe they score that touchdown. And then you have a field goal blocked in the second half. We already talked about how the offense wasn't quite as good in the second half. They were not good on third down. The Bills, I think the Bills changed something with their zone in the second half because it just wasn't clicking. But they held on. Like, the Atlanta Falcons, all of the ingredients of a true falconing were coming together. And like, it was easy to imagine that Josh Allen like steals this game and he's kind of smiling to himself on the post-game podium. Like, yeah, I don't know how that happened, but it did. And the Falcons got over it, and their defense helped them win a game where they only scored 3 points after halftime, and they left an explosive touchdown on the field at the end of the first half. You cannot take that for granted if you are an Atlanta Falcons fan. I think that means something.
Derrik, before we get out of here, I'm just curious, your big picture thoughts about Atlanta's offense and just how you feel about them as a team 6 weeks into the season and after a game like this.
I like the floor of it, obviously, because I still think the run game is really good. You have like maybe the best performing back in the league, or at least one of the very small handful. He's been incredible. Drake London is playing really, really well. I'm still worried about the ceiling just in terms of how dynamic can the quarterback be when he's pushed off of his structure. And then also just like Darnell Mooney not really playing at all this year. And like, I think him being like a really good field stretcher for them, being a really good number 2, I think would allow me to see like, what can this thing really look like? But I'm pretty encouraged by what the floor of this can look like. And if the defense is going to actually be a serious unit and have some of these games, like they're a more put together team than I really thought they were going to be.
What do you guys think about Atlanta Falcons defense under the hood for the preview show this week? Would you guys be willing to do that, or did you just watch them too closely to warrant something like that? Because I got to go back and rewatch it anyway.
I mean, I'd
be down for that.
I had so much fun watching them. I'd be happy to do it again. Like
they've been one of the best third down defenses in the league. Like we can say,
we
like
go back a couple games.
Yeah.
We don't have to just watch this one. If we want to dig back a little bit, I think it gives you. I might push that because I do want to watch it.
We should, because like I know like the JJ McCarthy game overall like skews their overall like EPA and whatever numbers, but like if you just look at third down, they've been really, really good all season, and they were in this game. So like there's something there for them.
I'm glad I'm programming the show in real time with a live audience, and so I can hold you guys to your decisions. I should do this more often.
Ooh, and they get the Niners this week?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We should absolutely do this.
I mean, listen, it might be tough to do this to the Niners considering they just lost, and now they don't have Nick Bosa or Fred Warner, but I might push for a Falcons-Niners game of the week just to give me an excuse to go back and watch both sides of the ball for the Falcons. So we'll see. We'll have that conversation tomorrow. We'll be having plenty more conversations on this feed and on the podcast feed over the next week or so. If you have not checked out the Week 6 recap, that is available for you on your YouTube feed. We'll also have a ton more just specific YouTube content coming your guys' way this year. I had my first Did You Notice video. It's a series that our soccer team does over in the UK. We're stealing it for the NFL this year, just picking up on a small trend or something that we've picked up on over the course of the season so far, doing a video about it. They did a fantastic job editing the first one. Encourage you guys to go check that out. And Derrik is just pumping out the scheme videos over the last few weeks. And so please go check out all the work that Derrik is doing. Very excited about all the wrinkles that we're going to be bringing to the YouTube channel this year. So this is your chance. Like, subscribe, do all that great stuff. We would sincerely appreciate it. We will be back over the rest of the week with Everything Athletic Football Show. For now, that's all we got. Appreciate you guys listening. Talk to you soon.